It's the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, and we are live.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, brought to you by 90 Min. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and on this edition, we're going to be rounding up all the latest Arsenal transfer news because, of course, over the weekend and this morning, lots and lots more rumours and stories have emerged. As is always the case with Arsenal during a transfer window, there seems to be so much smoke. But are we actually going to see it materialize into anything? The longer this goes on, the more you're starting to doubt that. But look, jokes aside, I do think Arsenal are working tirelessly behind the scenes, it seems, to get some business done. It looks as though Arsenal will be moving a fair few players on as well, which is something that we all knew needed to happen. I think what we can probably say quite safely, having kind of assessed how things have gone over the last couple of weeks or what the reports are kind of suggesting, Arsenal have more money to spend this summer than any of us envisaged at the start of this summer. So let's see what's going to happen. But as I say, we're going to spend this show, or the beginning of this show, running you through all the latest stories. I'll be sharing my views and thoughts on those stories, and then we'll take your questions towards the end of the stream, like we always do. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to the channel. We're pushing towards 14,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we'd like to get to 15,000 as soon as we possibly can. By the end of the year, I want to get to 15,000. Maybe that's not ambitious enough. I don't know. But we want to get to 15,000 sooner rather than later, basically. If you haven't liked the video as well and you are watching us on YouTube, please do that, because that does help too. And if you're listening via the audio platforms, please do leave us a review, because I've noticed over the last few weeks that our podcast has been creeping into some of the charts in the sports and football category, specifically across a number of different countries. We've seen it creep into that chart. So if you could please leave us a review, that does help that push. Right, big good morning, or good afternoon, I should say. It's gone midday now. Where is my head at today? To everybody who's joining us live, and of course to those who'll be watching or listening to this back a little bit later on. But without further ado, let's get into some of these stories. And let's start off with the report coming out with regards to Arsenal's interest in the Benfica left-back, Nuno Tavares. Now, 21 years old is the player. It's said that he is very, very keen to join Arsenal, and that £15 million would do it. £15 million would persuade Benfica to leave the club. Now, obviously, this news comes off the back of Kieran Tierney, just signing a new contract with the Arsenal. So we know that Kieran Tierney signed the 5-year contract extension. And I think there's an acceptance among the fan base. I don't know about you guys, but there certainly is in my mind that any left back that Arsenal sign this summer would be coming in as a squad player, would be coming in with the view to providing cover for Kieran Tierney, whose fitness record has been of concern since he joined the club. There's no getting away from that. As much as you love him, as much as you rate him, as much as you love his character, and, the little quotes that came off of his interview the other day have kind of sent Arsenal fans into this frenzy again of kind of love towards Kieran Tierney, and rightly so. But we do need somebody to come in, and we do need somebody to backfill that position. Now, I just mentioned that Fabrizio Romano reported that £15 million is what it would take for Benfica to allow Nuno Tavares to go. And Man Like Mo in the chat says he heard it was 8 million. Now, there have been reports of 8 million being enough as well. However, I've looked into both, and I've come to the decision that the £15 million quotation is probably a little bit more realistic. I'm not saying that I know that for sure, but that's the kind of number I'm looking at, because as I say, there have been contradictory reports from different outlets suggesting different amounts of money. Nuno Tavares, you know, is quite well thought of in Portugal. I just, you know, for me, 8 million doesn't sound enough for them to be kind of willing to part ways. We're talking about Benfica, and I know that obviously football right across Europe and right across the globe has taken a battering financially off the back of this global pandemic. But Benfica are a powerful football club, and I cannot see them being bullied into selling a player that they see as a really good prospect for £8 million. So that's why I've kind of lent towards that other report. Now, Nuno Tavares made 14 appearances in Liga NOS last season. Not a regular by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, you know, a young player still learning his trade, still coming through, was only named in the starting 11 21% of the time last season. So he isn't a first teamer necessarily at Benfica. He is somebody who is viewed as a player who will come through and will take up that position eventually, but he's not been a real regular all throughout the season, not a regular starter anyway. So you have to bear that in mind. Now, interestingly, he had 3 absences out last season for Benfica, and we're talking about Kieran Tierney and his injury problems, and it's kind of conditioned me into looking at the fitness records of some of the players that we're looking to sign. Now, he picked up a hip injury back in November last year. That hip injury saw him miss 13 days. That was 3 games. He missed 8 days, so 3 games again through coronavirus, which obviously can't be helped. That's not a reflection of the player's sort of tendency to pick up injuries. And then, of course, he had an ankle injury in April where he missed 10 days and was out for 2 games. So a couple of absences for Nuno Tavares, but looking at that is nothing really to worry about. And again, I apologize if you're not interested in the player's fitness record. But for me, when I'm thinking about somebody coming into the club now, I do take that into consideration, because I think we've been burnt by that so many times over the years. And I think other clubs have also felt the effects of signing players who weren't necessarily robust enough, weren't necessarily fit enough, strong enough to kind of stay fit and available in the Premier League, where the physical demands are greater than pretty much anywhere else. But just kind of reading through Football.London's report on this, and they say that he made his debut in the opening stages of the 2019-2020 season. He made 24 appearances in his debut campaign, scoring 2 goals and registering 6 assists. So he has got the ability to get forward and impact games in the final third, which is something that obviously Kieran Tierney does too. And when Kieran Tierney's not in the team, we do really, really miss that. So to have a left back that could come in and provide that kind of threat in the attacking side of the game as well, I think is important. According to Y-Scout, he averaged 5.9 dribbles per 90 minutes with a 63% success rate. Meanwhile, he averaged 9.16 defensive duels in a 90-minute period and came out on top 60.6% of the time. He looks like a defender who is capable of getting forward and impacting games, as I say, in the attacking third, but also he looks quite competent in terms of the defensive side of the game. And listen, we'd love Arsenal to be this all-action, swashbuckling team. We've seen under Mikel Arteta that at times we've had to be a little bit more pragmatic. Fans have criticised him for that, but I think that's the reality of where we're at as a team. We haven't earned the right to be able to go out and literally go toe-to-toe with Manchester City, with Chelsea, with Liverpool, etc., with Manchester United. We've had to be that little bit more pragmatic, and it's why Mikel Arteta has made us more competitive. But in those games, I should caveat that before someone jumps on my back. But going forward, as you look to develop and as you look to improve, you need to be able to have that capability as well to set the tempo, to take the game to opponents, to control football matches, and that's what really needs to happen. So you need to be looking at players who can obviously make that transition. So we've talked about Nuno Tavares, and then we'll refer to an article from The Athletic, which was put out this morning by James McNicholas, and that talks about Arsenal being in the market for 4 to 5 significant signings. Now, this is not new information. We knew this. We know that Arsenal are on the hunt for a number of players this summer, but the fact that it's been reported again by The Athletic just kind of adds credence to that story and adds sort of some further reliability, I would argue, to that report. The players mentioned are Albert Sambi Lokonga. Now, of course, according to the latest update, Arsenal and Anderlecht are slowly and very slowly edging towards an agreement. Now, Arteta's relationship with Vincent Kompany from his days at Manchester City, as well as with Roberto Martinez, who he's said to be good friends with, have enabled him to understand the player a little bit more, have given him some further insight, has allowed him some kind of access. We're being told that an opposition manager looking to sign your player wouldn't normally be granted in terms of statistics, in terms of reports. And I think that's partly why Mikel Arteta is so keen on Albert Sambi Lokonga. Now, we do know that Arsenal are in the market for another midfielder too. Lokonga will be coming in with the view to going on and developing into a regular first teamer. And, you know, you never know, a bit like Matteo Guendouzi, where we signed him as a prospect and he walked into the side straight away and did pretty well. You might see that happen with Lokonga as well, but there is no pressure from the Arsenal hierarchy for him to come in and fill that role instantly, is what we're being told. So one for the future for sure. But the initial bid Arsenal had made for Lokonga was around £13 million. That was rejected by Anderlecht, who are looking for something closer to 20 million. I don't think Arsenal are going to pay 20 million. I think they will meet in the middle somewhere. But as I mentioned on a previous episode, Anderlecht's financial situation is very worrying at the moment. They've got a huge deficit off the back of what's happened over the last 18 months or so with the coronavirus pandemic, and raising anywhere between 15 and 20 million pounds for Anderlecht would be incredibly helpful in writing off some of that deficit and allowing them to get back on their feet. So I do believe that Anderlecht will accept an offer of somewhere in between 13 and 20 million pounds. I don't think Arsenal are going to go all the way, and I don't think Anderlecht are going to risk scuppering a deal that could mean so much for them in terms of securing their future for the sake of a couple of £1 million. Let's move on to Manuel Locatelli. We've talked a lot about him in recent days, and I said to you guys that I'm a massive fan of Manuel Locatelli. If you're a gold member or above, you can check out our piece of exclusive content with Italian football journalist Carlo Garganese, who was, you know, quite quick to say that Manuel Locatelli will probably be on the move this summer, but is more likely to join Juventus at this present stage than anybody else. And I've talked about it before. Italian players usually reluctant to make that move abroad unless there is a really good offer on the table. And I talked about finances. I think Arsenal are in a position to rival Juventus from a financial standpoint at this moment in time. But are we able to do that from a sporting perspective? Juventus can guarantee Manuel Locatelli that they'll be in the title race pretty much, especially with Max Allegri returning to the club. Will Arsenal be able to offer him such guarantees? Arsenal can't even guarantee him that we'll be back in the Champions League. So you can understand the appeal. You can understand the appeal for Locatelli when it comes to Juventus. So it's a bit of a pipe dream, the Locatelli thing. I'd love to see him come, but as I say, it is very unlikely, and it looks as though he's headed to Juventus. But the Athletic do report that Arsenal did inquire about Manuel Locatelli. Doesn't look like that's progressed into anything further, but the inquiry apparently did happen. We're also being linked today with the Turkish international Mert Muldur, who's been seen actually as an alternative to Tyler Adams. Now, Tyler Adams is a fullback that plays his football in Germany at the moment that Arsenal have been heavily linked with, but it doesn't look like Arsenal are going to follow up on that interest. Tyler Adams is expected to cost a fair amount of money, whereas Mert Muldur could be available for a decent amount of money. And what's impressive about Mordor, although Turkey didn't have a good tournament, there's no getting away from that, is that he is very, very versatile. Mert Muldur actually started his career as a striker, dropped into centre-back, and now plays as a right back. Now, Arsenal, of course, are likely to be in the market for a right back, with Hector Bellerin's departure likely to take place between now and the start of the new season. Mert has also shown that he can play as a left back as well, which is interesting because you look at Arsenal at the moment and, take Bellerin out of the equation and you look at Callum Chambers and Cedric, who I don't think are top options at right back, but I think they're players you could get by with if you wanted to kind of delay fixing that position so that you could go on and, spend bigger in other areas. But the fact that we've got Cedric and Chambers and the fact that Mordor can play as a left back as well may tempt Mikel Arteta into going after this guy, because what he would do is he would come in, he'd be a backup to Kieran Tierney. He'd also be able to play on the right. We've also got Chambers at the club. We've also got Cedric at the club. So it feels like he might fit into the picture. He is currently at Sassuolo. He's got a contract there until 2024. Valued by Transfermarkt, and I know this is not, as I always say, it's not gospel, but around about £8 million. But I think Sassuolo would be tempted into selling this guy if Arsenal came up with something around the £10 million mark. Now, I think a lot of Arsenal's interest in a right back right now is probably subject to getting Hector Bellerin out of the club, and it's not been reported by The Athletic. I've got to stress, well, they weren't the first to report it anyway. But on the subject of Bellerin, Inter are said to be another club now who have entered the race to sign him. There's a number of clubs, including Villarreal and Inter now, who are looking at Hector Bellerin as a potential option at right back. Now, Inter have, of course, or are very close to wrapping up a deal that will see Achraf Hakimi join Paris Saint-Germain, which means they've got money to spend. But also, I actually think Bellerin would be quite suited to playing at Inter and the Italian game. I just wonder if Bellerin would prefer to join a Spanish club, given his Spanish roots, given that's home for him, over the Italian outfit. But of course, it's all got to work, hasn't it? The club have to come in with the right amount of money. The contract has to be right for Hector Bellerin. There are so many factors that make it far more complex than Hector Bellerin being able to sit there and go, well, I'd rather go to Spain than Italy. Everything needs to fall into place, but it is expected that Hector Bellerin is going to leave the club during this transfer window. But Inter, obviously, the latest name to be heavily linked. It's also alleged that Arsenal are monitoring Real Madrid left-back Miguel Gutierrez, a young player, just 19 years old, I believe, made his senior debut for the club back in April and has played 5 times since in the first team. A player that was linked with a move away from Real Madrid last summer, but wanted to stay and wanted to fight for his place. He was linked with loan moves away, with Real Madrid believing this guy's a talent, but not necessarily at this point, having shown him enough to suggest that he has a future there. That's why Miguel Gutierrez, after getting sort of 5 appearances at the back end of last season, is alleged to be sort of considering a move away. What's interesting here is that Miguel Gutierrez's agent or representatives are the same as those of Mikel Arteta, which naturally, if you are trying to broker a deal for a player and it's all in-house, makes it a little bit smoother. Not saying this one's definitely going to happen, and it kind of contradicts the Tavares story, who, some people are reporting Arsenal are very close to doing a deal for. But yeah, he's another player that Arsenal are allegedly looking at. So lots going on. And as I say, these are rumours. These are reports that have emerged over the course of the weekend and on Monday morning, and we're just bringing them all together for you to try and keep them all in one place so you can try and keep up to date with it, because it's such a fast-paced moving thing with rumours seemingly coming out of the woodwork left, right and centre. The Athletics report this morning also touches on Aaron Ramsdale. It says that contact has been made with Sheffield United over Aaron Ramsdale, and that Arsenal are no longer looking at a stopgap option in the goalkeeping position. Now, Matt Ryan was brought to the club, wasn't he, back in January on a short-term loan deal. Many of us felt that Arsenal were going to try and do something to get that deal done and keep him at Arsenal moving forward. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case now. And as the Athletics say, it looks like Arsenal are looking for a longer-term option. Aaron Ramsdale appears to be that option, or appears to be the front runner, actually, after the interest in Andre Onana seems to have cooled over the last couple of weeks or so. Now, there was a lot of talk about Arsenal going in for the Ajax goalkeeper, and that if his ban had been reduced by the Court of Arbitration for Sport, Arsenal were waiting to pounce. However, nothing further has happened with that. And Arsenal have seemingly, as I say, turned their attention to Aaron Ramsdale. Now, if you're going to go and sign Aaron Ramsdale, you're probably looking at around about £20 million is what Sheffield United will probably be looking for. Some say more. I think given their relegation, £20 million is an offer they would entertain. Just my opinion, though. It's not information I have. But, you know, can you really afford to go and pay that sort of money for a goalkeeper who you don't see as your number one? And therefore, does that suggest that Bernd Leno is closer to a move away from Arsenal than we actually think? I don't know. But, you know, similarly to the way that kind of Ben White coming in would probably be a bit of an ominous sign for William Saliba, I feel like the signing of a goalkeeper for that sort of money would probably be you know, a sign as to what's to come with regards to Bernd Leno as well. But you'll have to watch this space on that one. They also mentioned Maddison, and they say that, well, they basically suggest that Maddison to Arsenal is unlikely this summer. I think we all accepted and agreed that that was going to be unlikely, just purely because of what, you know, what he's going to cost. And the position that Leicester City find themselves in, which is not a position of desperate need for finance. You know, they're a very well-run football club at the moment. And yeah, so it all feels a little bit strange, you know, with that one. It all felt like a little bit out of the blue. I know there's a lot of Arsenal fans that like James Maddison. I like James Maddison too, but I don't like James Maddison for 60, 65, 70 million pounds. That's my honest view on that. Elsewhere, Arsenal have appointed Jonas Eidevall as the head coach of the Arsenal women, which is interesting. He's got a pretty good record, and Arsenal women, of course, had a bit of a difficult time lately, and will be looking to fix that and looking to improve on that. And we're going to be bringing you some content actually next season around Arsenal women. We're going to do a proper announcement on what that will look like and how it will look, but getting some wonderful people on board to be able to bring you that, because I know the interest in the women's game is growing, rightly so. You know, admittedly, I don't watch enough of it or know enough about it to kind of carry a show by myself. But I am going to be actively taking more interest in it. I'm going to be bringing someone on board who is very into it, very knowledgeable about it. And we'll be bringing you a show once a week where we'll look at the goings on around Arsenal women. So that should be something interesting as well. Right. The other bit of big news that came out kind of shortly after, I should say, I planned the show, was the news of a second bid from Aston Villa for Emile Smith-Rowe. Now, if you cast your mind back to a couple of weeks ago, Aston Villa submitted a £25 million offer for Emile Smith-Rowe. Arsenal rejected it quite emphatically from what we're told. But that's not deterred Aston Villa from coming back with a second offer. Aston Villa have now tabled an offer of £30 million, which again has been rejected by the Arsenal. Now, you know, I was talking the other day, I put a tweet out the other day, which I'm sure a lot of you saw, probably my most liked ever tweet ever, where I said that, you know, even if you kind of disagree with some of the transfer targets Arsenal are looking at, or some of the kind of decisions that have been made at the sort of board level over the last sort of few years, what you can at least see now is that they are trying to build a young core, that they are trying to build a team that can last, that can retain its value whilst hopefully helping Arsenal achieve their goals. And I talked about Ben White being a part of that. I talked about Emile Smith-Rowe, Bukayo Saka, Kieran Tierney being tied up to a new contract. We know Gabriel Martinelli, you know, he signed a new deal not so long ago as well. So we know that Arsenal are trying to kind of keep this young core together and looking to build the team around them. And so to sell Emile Smith-Rowe would make absolutely no sense. Now, there's a couple of reasons Aston Villa are circling around Emile Smith-Rowe. Now, the first one is, and probably the biggest one, is that Jack Grealish is probably going to leave Aston Villa this summer. Based on what we've read, based on what we've heard, it looks like they're there's going to be interest in Grealish, and Manchester City are rumoured to want to pay or be willing to pay around about £100 million for Jack Grealish, which would be huge. So the first point is Aston Villa are probably having to prepare for life after Jack Grealish. You're talking about Emile Buendia coming in, who probably plays a little bit more as a right-sided player, and Emile Smith-Rowe would essentially probably be that replacement for Jack Grealish as they look to sort of add further creativity to the squad. Now, fair play to Aston Villa, right? They are, they are ambitious. They are trying to do bits in the transfer window, and we talk a lot about ownership and lack of ambition and lack of a willingness to spend from many sort of people who own football clubs. Well, Aston Villa's ownership are showing no such signs. They look as though they are willing to go out there, spend big money, improve the team. They were tipped to have a really good season sort of halfway through last year, and they ended up finishing even below us in 11th place, which wasn't great. But you can see they're ready to go again. And, £25 million for me was a ridiculous offer from Aston Villa. I said at the time that I disagreed with it and I thought it was way too low, but I could understand why, from their point of view, they thought that was fair. We're talking about a player who's had injury problems and a player who has only really been on the scene for half a season. They've come back with a bid of £30 million, and again, that's been rejected. So why do Aston Villa feel that they can unsettle Emile Smith-Rowe? Why do Aston Villa feel that they can tempt Arsenal into selling this guy with such, when you think about his potential, modest bids? Now, the reason for that is because Emile Smith-Rowe and Arsenal are still locked in negotiations with regards to his new contract. Now, when I'm talking about his new contract, I'm not talking about necessarily, the period for which it still has to run, or his current deal still has to run. I'm sure Arsenal would look to extend that as part of the negotiations. But Emile Smith-Rowe still has 2 years on his contract. The problem is that Emile Smith-Rowe is on a wage that doesn't reflect right now his role in the side. Emile Smith-Rowe is on a wage that he was on prior to breaking through into the first team and prior to becoming such an important part of Mikel Arteta's side and squad. And, that's the big issue here. Aston Villa are looking at this and going, well, hold on a minute. Arsenal are not paying Emile Smith-Rowe currently what Emile Smith-Rowe deserves. Arsenal perhaps are unwilling to do what Emile Smith-Rowe and his representatives feel is fair, because the fact that these negotiations are still kind of stuck. So Aston Villa are looking at this and going, well, Arsenal need money to bring in players. We've talked about Arsenal spending, but make no mistake about it. Arsenal may have borrowed money from here, there, and everywhere to get some of these deals done before they have to sell, but they will sell, and they're reliant on selling to make up a lot of that deficit. That's the only way Arsenal are going to get by. It's the only way Arsenal are not going to do their financial situation any further damage. So Aston Villa are looking at this and kind of thinking about the combination of Arsenal's need to raise money. And they're also looking at the fact that Emile Smith-Rowe right now might just be thinking, hold on a minute, you're telling me you want me to stay, yet the offer that is currently on the table is not reflective of my role and my importance to this group at the moment. And Emile Smith-Rowe's importance is even bigger at the moment, with Arsenal having yet to find a number 10 to come into the side. Because we thought that we were going to get Martin Odegaard. We identified him as the number one target. Everybody wanted to see him come in. Everybody within the club I'm talking about. And now that is looking increasingly unlikely. So Emile Smith-Rowe's stock, as a result of Arsenal not having an alternative or not being close to signing an alternative, rises, doesn't it? And Villa are looking at that and they're thinking, we might be able to cash in here. Emile Smith-Rowe's got an incredibly high ceiling. I'm a massive fan of his. I don't want to see him go anywhere. Bold from Aston Villa to try and bully Arsenal into doing something that they clearly don't want to do. But it's kind of a sign of where we've kind of drifted to in recent years. And it's worrying, isn't it? But, as I say, Arsenal are yet to find a breakthrough with regards to the new contract with Emile Smith-Rowe. However, the feeling within the club is still confident that they will get this deal done. So I wouldn't panic just yet, but obviously this interest from Aston Villa is kind of, how can I put it? It's kind of putting further scrutiny on the situation, adding a little bit more pressure on Arsenal's side to get this deal done. I don't think for a minute that Emile Smith-Rowe, a young Arsenal lad who's been with the club since he was 10 years old, has established himself at the highest level, would want to join Aston Villa. That's a move backwards, in my opinion. Aston Villa fans might disagree, but the Premier League table says otherwise. So yeah, I don't see Emile Smith-Rowe being necessarily keen. I think Arsenal would have to give him literally no choice, and kind of take it out of his hands by accepting an offer for that to be a thing. But yeah, that kind of rounds up the latest transfer rumours. And just finally to add on that Emile Smith-Rowe point, Premier League win percentage with Emile Smith-Rowe, 67%. Without Emile Smith-Rowe, 30%. That's stats from Orbinio. Yeah, interesting. That just shows his importance, doesn't it? Right, let's get a few of your questions in the live chat box. We'll go for another sort of 5-7 minutes or so. Please do drop your questions in. Make sure you put a little cue at the beginning as well so that I don't miss those. I can see there's well over 170 of you watching us on YouTube alone at the moment. So if you haven't done so, please hit the like button. We're on 45. Love to get up to 100. There's definitely enough of you watching to do that. So it shouldn't be an issue for us to hit 100 likes between now and the end of the stream. So get hitting that button. It doesn't cost you a thing. And of course, as always, subscribe to the channel if you are new as we push towards our next goal. Let's pick up some of these questions. This first one comes from Inter. Has the Swiss statue, referring to Granit Xhaka, been sold yet? Not quite. No deal has been completed yet, but we know that Xhaka wants to go. We know that Arsenal are happy to let him go. We know that Roma are happy to sign him. There's just a little bit of work still to be done with regards to the transfer fee. That's my understanding of it. I know there's been some reports suggesting otherwise. I think you'll see proper movement on this one once Switzerland's participation at Euro 2020 is finished. Granit Xhaka made some comments the other day where he was asked about it, and he said, Arsenal know what I want to do, and it's quite nice here, basically talking about Rome, and everybody kind of got absolutely fucking irate about it and start, that's why we want him gone. That's why Granit Xhaka is no good for Arsenal Football Club, because he says things like that. I don't blame Granit Xhaka one bit for saying things like that when you consider how he's been treated by sections, not all sections of our fan base. But it's just funny how the same people that were kind of on their knees praying for Granit Xhaka to be sold this summer are now outraged by comments that suggest he's on his way out. I mean, talk about hypocritical. Let's pick up a couple more. This one made me chuckle. Matt says, Harry, until yesterday I thought Spinazzola was football slang for a really creative player and not the Italian left back, e.g. that Grealish is such a Spinazzola. John Daly says, why aren't we or anyone sniffing around Nick Pope? Is going to be England's number one for years to come. I actually prefer Nick Pope to Aaron Ramsdale, incidentally, which is interesting. It is really interesting, but it seems that Ramsdale's the man on the radar. Omar says, Harry, I hear that this Tavares lad is highly rated. Would he be a good signing for us? I think he would be a good signing based on what I've seen and what I know, and admittedly, it's not a great deal. I'm not a Portuguese football expert and I wouldn't want to claim to be, but it looks like a decent signing. But the thing is with Arsenal right now is, yes, we're talking about Arsenal having more money available this summer than we envisaged. We've heard about Arsenal borrowing money and that kind of allowing them to get business done prior to completing all of their sales. But the thing you've got to weigh up here is you've got to work out the priority of the positions that we're looking to strengthen in. For me, midfield is more important than anything. And if spending whatever amount it's going to be on Tavares hinders us in doing business in midfield, then I think you got to look elsewhere and at a cheaper option. That's my opinion, because I think you've got to prioritize. And if you can get all the deals done and you can address all the positions in this one window, fantastic. But you shouldn't be compromising on quality in order to get quantity in, is my view on this. Let's pick up a couple more bits. Pranjal says, are we now going hard on Neves given Portugal are out? I would like him here at Arsenal. I would like Neves at Arsenal as well. I'm a fan of his. And I think that, a lot of these deals where we as fans are kind of sitting here in the UK or wherever you are, stressing and going, my God, why isn't it being done? Why isn't nothing done yet? I think we have to be realistic about the challenges that the European Championships pose for those players that are involved in that competition when it comes to negotiating transfers, getting deals done, getting medicals done, etc., etc. So I think once the Euros are completed, you're going to see a real acceleration in the number of deals that you're seeing done, not just with Arsenal, but across the market. I think there'll be stuff put in place in the meantime, but I think you won't get many announcements between now and the end of the tournament, especially involving players who are still involved in the tournament. Once their participation is over, that might obviously change. I'm going to pick up one more because I am a little bit pushed for time with work today, but we will be back tonight, either tonight or first thing in the morning, depending on how things go, whether we get extra times and penalties and things like that. But the initial plan is to bring you another show at around about 7 p.m. UK time live, and that'll be available in podcast format from first thing on Tuesday morning. Haroon the Gooner says, Harry, any news on what Balogun's role will be next season? Now, of course, following Balogun has signed a new contract at Arsenal. No news, and I think that's probably dependent on what's going to happen with Eddie Nketiah. We understand that Arsenal have offered him a new deal with a view to protecting his value a little bit, but that it doesn't seem as though he's going to accept that deal. Eddie Nketiah will probably rather move on and play regular football, in which case, following Balogun steps higher up the pecking order, doesn't he? Which I think is probably the right thing, given the commitment Arsenal have made to keeping him at the club. Right, going to leave it there. And if I've missed your questions, I apologize, but we will be doing another stream at some point today. If the Croatia-Spain game doesn't go to extra time, we'll bring you a stream at 7 where we'll discuss a bit more Arsenal stuff, but we'll be looking ahead as well to England versus Germany, which is a massive game to come on Tuesday in the European Championship. So I'll be sharing my thoughts on that one, as well as discussing anything else Arsenal related that emerges between now and then, as well as taking your questions in the live chat. If it does go to extra time, then I'll bring you that show later tonight after the second game, when I can look back on those games and basically where I don't have to miss the football. Is the long and short of it. There you go. Right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please don't forget, if you haven't already, to hit the like button. It really does help. And subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll catch you all very soon with more. Until next time. Ciao.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.